it's not individuals that are going to be able to solve our problems, and humanity has to evolve as a whole. In other words, to wrap it up, and then we can have a little Q&A. I spoke yesterday about a consciousness revolution. So what I meant by that is that you have all these little things that are happening all over the world, what we call the collective dynamics of micropolitics. And yet there's a sense that it's not necessarily amounting to something mega, that some huge systemic change, right? And I said, what is the missing link? And yesterday I argued that the missing link, or the hidden link, not the missing, between the body and the mind is the breath. So once you can hold the breath, or once you master the breath, and the breath is also the life force. And people often ask me, what is spirituality? The word spirit means breath in Latin. So one way of defining spirituality is you can just simply call it the art and science of breath. So if you understand that, because breath simply doesn't mean breath, it really means energy management. How to manage energy. Because the whole world is permeated with energy. And breathing in and breathing out is something so incredible if you just think about it. What are you breathing in and what are you breathing out? And it is eventually an act of responsibility, because an acknowledgement of our co-being, because we are breathing the same air, no? So if we couldn't breathe in, we would die. And this breath, the air doesn't belong to anybody, any nation, or, it's everybody. So we have to be collective custodians of this planetary endowment or gift. And that's why all notions of selfishness are so silly, because you can't live without breathing, and breathe in the act of breathing you're connecting with everyone. And the gift of being able to breathe, being able to live, implies that you owe your very life, your very breaths to so many factors. The trees which are letting out oxygen, for instance, and all the other beings that inhabit the space which are allowing you to breathe. So I have to be grateful to Murari-ji for sharing this atmosphere with me. If he says, no, you can't breathe, I'm going to breathe alone. I need that oxygen, and he clamps my mouth, I'll be dead. So I owe my life to Murari-ji. And if I'm not grateful to him, if I don't take care of him, then I'm so selfish. Because we are co-breathing, and I don't care about him. If he's in trouble, or if he's gasping for breath, and I say, nah, that would be so selfish. So you have to think that the very act of breathing is connecting all of us to each other and reminding us of our collective responsibility for each other, and not just of our rights. I have a right to this, I have a right to that, but I have a responsibility to each of you, because I'm sharing this breath, this process of breathing. And so imagine that when we go to sleep, we are losing our individuality, either in a Jungian sense that we are getting into the collective unconscious and sharing each other's fears, anxieties, hopes, aspirations, and of course dreams of a perfected world. Somebody said Sri Aurobindo is a utopian thinker yesterday. In a way he is, because he believed that you could perfect life on earth. So one of the big books he wrote, very fat book, more than 760 pages, 670 pages, which is the combined length of these two books that Tilochanji so kindly sent us to read last night. So I think The Life Divine is the book he wrote, which is about twice the length as these two books. And the basic argument is that human beings must evolve or perish. And if we evolve to a higher state of consciousness, then life on earth can be the life divine. We don't have to go to heaven. human life on planet Earth can be a perfected life, for which, as I said, you need a consciousness revolution. And yesterday what I was trying to say is that we must challenge our ideas of sustainability, because there are so many definitions. There are the UN sustainability goals, there are 17 things they put out, and they've got these different points, political, economic. That's wonderful, and that's what I'm trying to say, that rather than saying this doesn't work, this works, what I'm proposing is that every little thing counts. And the binary or the oppositional is not going to work. East versus the West, black versus white, male versus female, yeah? And colonized versus colonizer, exploiter versus exploited. I think that kind of thinking, however useful it may be strategically, because people are still fighting for rights, it may be useful strategically, or modernity versus tradition. That may be useful strategically, but actually it may be insufficient, or alternative versus dominant, right? Pre-industrial versus post-industrial. These notions of sustainability, because actually when you think about it, this is the paradox again, since we are talking about paradoxes. The paradox of sustainability is that sustenance is the way of managing change, because nothing is static. So these societies which we may have thought were great were not, were fated to change and evolve, and therein lies, the challenge. That is, in a way, sustainability is the art of managing change, because human beings have never been static. They've always been pushing forward to something greater and grander. And in all traditions, there's always been the idea of the golden age, and the perfectibility of the human being or of the planet has been an ideal in many societies. And so, as I said, the ancients had the wisdom when they wanted to integrate the human, the natural and the supernatural. What that meant was that there was not to be a man-nature conflict. Yesterday somebody was talking about nature. So the Anthropocene was not the ideal. The ideal was a kind of mutuality between the human and the natural. And then something beyond the human, the world of the gods, if you will, or the world of wisdom, or that sphere of the overmind or the supermind. People called it by different terms, but the idea was to harmonize that through cycles of reciprocity. Because if man was fighting the gods, then there would be disharmony and there would be conflict. And if man was fighting nature, there would be disharmony and conflict. So that was the way they were trying to theorize or think about sustainability in the past. Now you can't revive it, simply speaking, because we are living in a completely different environment today. And that's why even this whole business about the man versus machine will not work. Most of these films are about a war between human beings and robots or machines or computers, right? You've seen The Matrix, for example. And again, you see, so the point I'm trying to make is the consciousness revolution will have to be, in a way, a kind of building up through contradiction and crisis, because in a way, mutation happens through contradiction or crisis. And I was speaking about this. Elephants in Africa are being born without tusks now, because that's their adaptation. They're being hunted for tusks. And so lots of baby elephants don't have tusks because they've figured out that they're being hunted for the tusk. You get it? You read about it. So how we adapt to these challenges is so fascinating. I was telling you about the size of the cranium. So the point I'm trying to make is this, that just as we get digitized more and more, we're going to be cyborgs already. There's a book about it. And there's and then the consciousness revolution that I'm talking about, again, it's not going to be about a yogic transformation versus a technological transformation. Here's another opposition or polarity, which it has to be a combination. We have to find ways in which technology can help yoga. So please think about what I'm saying. But the idea is this, that there is a slow and gradual and accumulative gathering of knowledge, information, breaking down of barriers, people getting to know each other, and through the knowledge, the losing of prejudice, all of that. And then there's going to be that gap. So the mutation means you've got to, from this level, you've got to go there. I don't know if it's going to be possible, but what we know is that this level, we don't have the solution. In the nation-state model, or in the current economic model of capitalism, or qualified capitalism, or socialism, or a combination of the two, or custodianship, or private philanthropy of Bill Gates and the Sage of Omaha, right? And all these others getting together and creating a bigger fund than aid-giving nations. It's not going to work simply like that. But all of these together may take us to a point where something happens and the consciousness revolution happens. And as I said, it's not the missing link, but the hidden connector between the body and the mind is the breath. So similarly, it's this consciousness which is the glue, which unites the micro and the macro. Do you see what I'm saying? If you use Christian theology, it's like the Holy Ghost, It's like the Spirit, which is all pervasive, and which, you're individuals, and that is a connector. It just makes you think, And so everything has to change a quantum. That's what it is. Otherwise, as I'm thinking, it's not as if we are simply evolving, we're also devolving. It's also regression, because as I was saying yesterday, machines are getting smarter and smarter, and except for a few human beings who have the equipment, who have the privileges, who have the nutrition, who have the wherewithal to improve themselves, a lot of people are getting dumbed down. You look around and there's a huge competence deficit everywhere. There are people who only know how to drive one route. If you change their route, they can't function. And there are people with very limited knowledge. I was telling you about some people yesterday who only know one language. They can't function in the modern world fully. So there's a lot of dumbing down that's also happening. And there's also nutritional inequality. That is, some people are eating better and better, more consciously. A lot of people are eating worse and worse, if you know what I mean. They're getting cheap food, which is full of, it's injected with hormones. And so their bodies are getting duller and duller, they're getting degraded. There's a degradation of human potential that's also happening. The population is increasing, human beings are multiplying, but the mass of human beings is actually in some ways getting dumber and dumber, more and more incompetent, more and more dependent on machines and other systems, on other people to feed them. Many people are just waiting for government dole and support. Human initiative is also dying. So these gaps are so in other words, progress happens through contradiction. Contradiction forces you to change. And if that is what's happening, then the human race is at a brink. And either we mutate, and there's a consciousness revolution, which means it's not a matter of one plus one, no. It's a matter of an exponential outpouring where the whole of planetary existence gets transformed. Not through institutional or individual or non-governmental mobilizations of micropolitics and the marches and the kind of stuff we hear about. But it's something that you can't even imagine. That's the point. Somebody was yesterday talking about utopianism. So the difference with Sri Aurobindo and the others is he was a prophet of the future. He was not interested in the past. He said the future beckons to us and it holds hope and potential of a dimension that's unimaginable. And he didn't say a lot about technology. The world that he wrote about 100 years ago, in 1914 to 1919, exactly 100 years ago, he was not able to predict that human life was going to be transformed by technology at the pace and the rate at which it has been. So that's one part of his writings where you see a gap. But today, the pace of change is being driven by technology. And the idea of the consciousness revolution is that all these factors, the contradictions that we face, the scarcities, the inequalities, and the inadequacies of the current state of knowledge, because expertise is required in a variety of fields, but wisdom to bring it together, which is lacking, is also needed to make it all count. So we're getting highly specialized in the domain of knowledge production. But there are very few people who can link it together and bring about the policy changes or the direction for larger sections of humanity that are required to save our existence. So we're stuck. We're stuck with systems which belong to the past, nation states which belong to another era, and all our institutions, including family, marriage, etc., the church, religions, which all belong to the past, and the challenges of tomorrow, which are much vaster than the crises of yesterday. But if all of these somehow result or trigger this consciousness revolution, then that, if you think of a metaphor of a flood, it floods all across humanity, and it's not that greatly endowed individuals are going to lead the way. They may become points of reference. We don't know how it will work, but it's like the grid. You switch off the power, the whole city is dark. But when you switch on the power, there's light in every home. So the consciousness revolution is like that. It's a way that all of us will be transformed. It's not the magic wand, but it's the possibility that our lives are going to change in ways that are unprecedented through the dawn of a new kind of integrative knowledge and intelligence. And for that, the daily practice, some of the things we do where we try to bring together the different aspects of ourselves, the emotional, the physical, the intellectual, the psychic, the spiritual, in an integrated and holistic sense of sanity, as opposed to somebody going and spraying bullets into a bunch of people, may show the way. So I'll stop there.